What's up, folks? Melvin here, back again, going to talk about something, actually not in a subject that I've talked about yet on this channel. And that is about where TV currently is right now, at least in general, at least in terms of kids channels, because I actually don't watch very many adult channels, because, well, actually I don't watch TV in general, but the channels I have the most connection with are Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney. Those are the channels I grew up with. And by the time I became old enough to, being able to use the computer, I sort of never went back to TV ever. And I also kind of want to apologize a little bit because right now it's sort of like rush hour time in this town, so you're gonna be hearing cars around, and I apologize for that. But yeah, so when you go on those channels, you are noticing a sort of trend that isn't really no one's really talking about. Because here's the thing, everyone knows, even kids know that TV is dying. Like, even little kids know that more people are just going on the internet and more people aren't just enjoying it on the internet. If you're someone my age, that kind of stuff is a little bit shocking to you because you knew how popular TV was at the time. And now it just isn't. So, we're seeing channels, even though they're gaining in popularity and they have popular shows, that they're sort of kind of having some of their most popular shows are not very high quality. A good example with Cartoon Network is what is it called? Gosh, Teen Titans Go, obviously. I don't know why it took me so long to remember that. And then for Disney, I don't know, I guess Bizarre Vark, I don't know, I really don't know anything about that. And then for Nickelodeon, I have no idea what's the most popular show there, but cartoons are definitely not the focus. Even though some of their cartoons are actually pretty good, their sitcoms are what really, bring in the big bucks, but their sitcoms have been getting worse and worse each time. And the obvious main reason is, general audience isn't really watching TV anymore. Now it's more of a niche audience instead. So with Cartoon Network, what you're noticing is the main people who watch Cartoon Network now are little kids that like colorful things, and they don't necessarily like things. It doesn't have to be well animated. The jokes don't have to be funny, but it has to have jokes and it has to be colorful. That's why you're noticing shows like Teen Titans Go, and that's why you're noticing shows like the Powerpuff Girls. And then even the new Ben 10 reboot. They're meant to be a little bit more colorful, and they're meant to have more jokes. The jokes don't have to be good, and it doesn't have to be well animated, as long as it's colorful and as long as it has jokes. Those are the most popular things right now because, but then you might be saying, oh, what about Adventure Time, Regular Show, and Steven Universe? Those are the outliers of the situation. Those shows are actually pretty good. But the reason why they're good is because they came out at the right time. They came out at people my age, and they've stuck. Like shows like Adventure Time, Steven, they appeal to people my age. So that's like teenagers, high schoolers, and people in college. But I'm pretty sure the main demographic for those shows are people my age. Somewhere again between those age range. But now those people are moving on to other things. They're moving on to different types of shows now, or they're just moving on to the internet. So those shows are kind of going away as we see them. And some of those high quality shows, they're just not really gaining the attention, and Cartoon Network just knows a formula and they're sticking with it. So that's kind of why we're seeing those type of shows. Does that mean they won't have high quality shows anymore? No, not necessarily. They can still have high quality shows, and they could still have people, large audience watching them, but just for the time being, that's what it is. Disney and Nickelodeon, they sort of have the same strategy, and that's just live action shows. Live action shows are like sitcoms. The only reason why I know about Bizarre Vark is just because of Jake Paul. That's the only reason why I know about Bizarre Vark. I do not know anything else about it, in all honesty. I don't even know if Disney even has any good shows. But yeah, Nickelodeon and Disney, they're really just focusing on sitcoms. Why are they focusing on sitcoms? Cheap to make, cheap and easy to make. You only have to hire kids. The jokes are really easy to make too. I don't know, that's just really much all there is to it. The jokes are really easy to make for sitcoms. Let's just be honest there, because those are made for a more general audience. and animation's getting more and more expensive to make, so maybe they're kind of steering away from animation. Even though that I know Nickelodeon has The Loud House, which is actually really I like the show. I think it's entertaining. I think it's fine, but again, no one's really going back to TV, so no one should be surprised the directions that those are heading. But no one ever talks about those directions, and no one ever explains why it's happening. And even though this video I'm making is incredibly simple, and you know, it's really easy to make, no one ever talks about it, and I just think it's weird, especially considering how many cartoon YouTubers talk about cartoons every day. Now again, we can still have high quality cartoons. We can have, you know, we can still have those things. Where they're going to be in the future, I don't know. So far, Adult Swim is doing fine with their like they make good animated shows from time to time. The Rick and Morty, obviously, so those are still doing good, and people are still willing to watch that on TV. So I'm glad that people are still willing to watch cartoons and they're still willing to enjoy it. I'm glad that the creator of Rick and Morty is making a new show for True TV. So I'm glad to see that cartoon is happening. Even though Rick and Morty is sort of like the outlier. Oh, and also I think Close Enough. That's the name of the new show created by Regular Show. You know, those have some good animation. They're not the worst animated shows, but most comedies are just not that good animated. They're not. So that's why we can still see those. That's why we still see South Park, Family Guy, American Dad, you know, shows like that. Even Bob's Burgers. No one can say. I think people can agree with me when I say that the shows aren't the best animated shows. But they don't need to be. They don't need to be the best animated shows because they're focused on comedy and they're focused more on the story and sort of the dialogue itself. They're really focused on those things. So they don't really need to do that. So what people are seeing in terms of, you know, those shows and sort of what TV is going, they're just trying to focus on niche audience now. They're not focusing on the general audience anymore. They're now going more niche. So we're gonna keep seeing this pattern unless those big channels can find some way to regain their audience, and maybe that time is over. Maybe we're not going to see, you know, any real amazing shows coming from, you know, what I grew up with Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney. Now might be the time where it's just, you know, over. I mean, seriously, like in terms of like Bizarrevark, Jake Paul, you know, a YouTuber, he makes more he gets more views from his YouTube channel than from on the, you know, on Bizarrevark. And it could be safe for me to argue that he also makes more money off of YouTube than Bizarrevark, but there's a lot of benefits from working with YouTube. So, you know, it makes sense on why he wanted to stay there and why he wanted to keep working. So that's my quick little video. I just felt like no one really talked about that, and I wanted to bring it up, even if it's a simple concept and no one, you know. I still want those to succeed just because I'm nostalgic about it, but I think it's safe to say that maybe those channels, you know, might not be, maybe they're just going to keep going down until TV's gone completely. But luckily, we still have things like Netflix and Hulu and things like that could save animation. They could have good anime. I know Netflix definitely has a lot of great animated kid shows that you guys should watch, and maybe I'll make a list of my recommendations for good kid shows, because I have been seeing some of them and they have been pretty good. So it's not the end of the world as we know it if these channels are gone. I would like to see them continue because they do add competition, but television is just inconvenient, so that's just going to keep going down, unfortunately. But I would like to know what you guys think of sort of like why we're seeing this pattern. If you think I'm wrong, I would like to know, because I don't think there's enough of a conversation in terms of cartoons, because I still think cartoons are worth watching. I still think there's a lot of good cartoon shows out there, and I think there's a lot of good cartoon shows in general from all three of those channels I was talking about, Cartoon Network, Disney, and Nickelodeon, where they had good shows, but then they weren't treated properly from the people who the people who licensed it, which are those channels. So yeah, I mean, that is unfortunate for some of those shows, and we kind of do need to give them support. I feel like online support is now more important than ever when you see a show like that. So if there's a show on any of those channels that have good animated shows, let me know. I would like to know about them. I would like to see. I do have Hulu, so I might be able to watch some of them. I know they have a lot of Disney shows and a lot of Cartoon Network shows, and maybe not a lot of Nickelodeon shows, but there are some of them on Hulu that I could watch if you guys recommend them to me. But since I don't have TV anymore, there's no way I can personally check, but I'll do my own research to see what's out there. So with that said, take care, folks.